Hi, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about the third film of Harry Potter, which is The Prisoner of Azkaban. And we actually really enjoyed this film. It's probably one of our favorites out of all of them. And we really liked it because it took more of a dark approach to everything, and also because the director did really well with like seasons and the windows.
The director is named Alfonso Cuarón, and he did many different techniques that we had seen in the previous movies and in other movies after that. He used certain techniques to really show transitions, which really is the essence of this movie as well, because it's all about this being a transition into his more teenage years and everything getting a lot more dark and a lot more serious.
One aspect of being the darkness would be the Dementors. They do show them a lot. The first time they're introduced is actually on the train.
We'll discuss more about certain scenes and certain themes that we see all throughout this movie.
Okay, so another theme that was in the third movie was double lives, and this theme actually foreshadows a lot of like the characters that have double lives. And then another example is where Sirius Black is trying to find Ron's pet rat, Scabbers, but they don't know that he's actually Pettigrew, which is Voldemort's like goon that we talked about earlier on. And Sirius Black actually destroys Ron's side of the room trying to find him.
Within that, you also see that people think that Sirius Black is going after Harry, but you don't really think about it unless you really pay attention that he actually did not touch Harry's bed. He all went after Ron's bed. So a new creature and character that we see within the magical world is Dementors. Dementors are a super creepy, scary thing that's just a faceless figure in a dark cloak. We first see this on the train. So Dementors represent many aspects, and some of those aspects include
death, and then they also like connect them to the Grim Reaper as well, which I find actually really interesting because whenever you think of death, you think of like dark objects, or like even like being very, very cold as well.
We see the coldness on the train scene when they go up to the window because the train has stopped and the window starts to frost, and so does that glass of water that is right there next to the window. And then the Dementors go onto the train, and that's when we figure out what Dementors do. Dementors essentially take your happy memories and take them out of you and leave you with the bad ones. And the bad memory that Harry experiences is one that he doesn't really remember, because this memory was when he was a child and he heard the sound of his mother screaming his name and telling Voldemort not to go after her son. And this was the last thing that Harry heard before his mother died. So this was a very traumatic memory that he has, but that is more in his subconscious because he is so young that he wouldn't be able to remember it. But now, ever since the Dementors made him relive that experience, he now knows that memory and is able to experience that throughout the rest of the books and the series.
Another scene that we wanted to talk about was the ending scene in the movie where Harry is trying to protect Sirius Black at the lake, and the Dementors are surrounding them, and he has to pretty much step up and become like the hero and face his fear, which it's a good scene because before that Lupin actually steps up and tries to help Harry defeat his fear of the Dementors. And I honestly think it's kind of shocking to think that Harry is more scared of the Dementors than Voldemort in this aspect, because they kind of get away from Voldemort in this one. So
yeah, I definitely see that. There's less of a focus on Voldemort, whereas the first two movies there was. And within this particular scene, Harry has to produce a Patronus charm, which is happy memories. Harry has not had a very happy life.
No.
And so his memory is pretty much just him remembering his parents and it not necessarily being real. But that memory is strong enough for him to produce an amazing Patronus charm that defeats all of those Dementors. And his Patronus in particular is very interesting and adds a lot to who he is, because his Patronus is a stag. And the stag, we learn later that that was Harry's father's Patronus as well. So like we talked about in our first episode, Harry is always trying to reconnect with his parents, especially now that he's in Hogwarts. A theme that we saw within this book or movie was injustice in the legal system. In the book, we do learn that Hermione finds out that all the food in Hogwarts is made by house elves. She becomes very upset by this and even protests by not eating and also making buttons. Eventually she gives up on the not eating thing because she gets hungry. But so within that, Hermione sees that the house elves are slaves and that's some injustice within the magical world. Another way we see injustice is in the movie there's Hedwig, who is a griffin, and what happens with Hedwig is he attacks Malfoy because Malfoy is a jerk. And so Malfoy, being Malfoy, goes and runs to his father and tells his father to do something about it. And so Malfoy's father decides to go to the ministry and make Hedwig be put to death. Another punishment that was given to someone who was wrongly accused was Sirius Black. Sirius Black eventually escapes from Azkaban, but we learn at the very end of the film that he is not the one to blame for telling Voldemort about Harry's parents and causing Harry's parents' death. We find out that it's Pettigrew. So throughout this movie, the director took a great new approach to how he filmed the movies that was very different from any of the other directors. One of the things that he did was he always had a constant camera that was moving. So this gave the feeling of unsettlement and movement throughout the entire film. Another thing he does that kind of shows and makes the viewer think is he will move the camera through windows, which is kind of represents a sense of transition and a sense of sometimes even Harry looking out the window and wanting to be somewhere else. So it also adds a bit of isolation. In one of the scenes as well, and this is the scene with the Boggart, the camera goes into the mirror, and that really adds to the scene because it is a self-reflection, and the Boggart is something that reflects the own person's fears. So doing that with the mirror leads and transitions the whole scene in a new way that's really interesting to the audience. Another thing that the director does is throughout some scenes there's a bird flying, and the bird will fly to different places in Hogwarts that will become later significant. And the bird also helps scenes and transitions through the seasons. In the third Harry Potter film, in our discussion, we talked about the legal system and its injustice, the director's decisions, double lives being foreshadowed, and also the Dementors.
If we didn't hit anything that you wanted us to hit on like scenes or themes that you guys found throughout the film, just comment below and I'll subscribe.